Welcome back to the Sharing English podcast, where we explore stories from the English-speaking world, spoken slowly and clearly for curious English learners like you. Let's get started. Hey everyone, it's your host Freya. Imagine it's the middle of July. The temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. The humidity is high, and you're trying to sleep. There's no air conditioning, no cool bedroom, no cooled office, no air-conditioned shopping mall, no cool car waiting outside. For many of you, this might be a reality. And for much of U.S. history, it also wasn't unusual. It was simply everyday life. Today, we're going to explore how one invention quietly transformed the United States. Air conditioning didn't just make people more comfortable. It changed where Americans live, how cities grew, how people worked, and even how they spent their free time. Before modern air conditioning, surviving the summer often meant changing the way you lived. People opened every window they could. They used handheld fans and ceiling fans. Many homes, especially in the southern United States, were built with large porches to catch any breeze that might come by. Some families even slept on screened sleeping porches during the hottest nights. Shade trees were planted around homes. Ice was delivered to houses before refrigerators became common. Daily routines changed too. People often worked early in the morning or later in the evening to avoid the hottest part of the day. Cities could become especially uncomfortable. Brick buildings and paved streets trapped heat, making nights almost as hot as the afternoons. In the northern United States, summers could be uncomfortable, but in much of the South, they could be exhausting and dangerous. Today's vocabulary words are ones you'll hear throughout this episode. Humid means the air contains a lot of moisture. Muggy describes warm, humid weather that feels sticky and uncomfortable. A heat wave is a period of unusually hot weather that lasts for several days or longer. If you've ever experienced a hot, humid summer, you probably know exactly what these words feel like. Modern air conditioning exists because of an unexpected problem. In 1902, an American engineer named Willis Carrier was hired by a printing company. The company wasn't trying to keep workers comfortable. Instead, humidity was causing paper to expand and contract. That means getting bigger and smaller, making it difficult to print books and magazines accurately. Carrier designed a system that controlled both temperature and humidity. In doing so, he invented modern air conditioning. Like many inventions, its original purpose had very little to do with how we use it today. At first, air conditioning was expensive. Most families couldn't afford it. Instead, people encountered it in public places, like movie theaters, department stores, hotels, office buildings. In fact, one of the reasons movie theaters became so popular during the summer was because they were cool. People weren't just going to see the latest film. Sometimes they were simply looking for a comfortable place to escape the heat for a few hours. It's easy to forget today, but for many Americans, stepping into an air-conditioned building once felt almost magical. This may be the biggest way air conditioning changed the United States. Before air conditioning became widespread after the Second World War, many parts of the South and Southwest were difficult places for large populations to live year-round. Cities such as Phoenix, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, and Las Vegas certainly existed before air conditioning, but as homes, schools, hospitals, offices, and businesses became cooled, these cities became much more attractive places to live and work. Of course, air conditioning wasn't the only reason these cities grew. New industries, improved transportation, military investment, and economic opportunities all played important roles too. But historians generally agree that air conditioning made the rapid growth of many southern and southwestern cities much easier. Without it, the modern map of the United States might look very different. As more people moved south, a new term became common: the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt generally refers to the southern and southwestern states stretching from Florida across Texas to Arizona and parts of California. During the second half of the 20th century, millions of Americans moved there and still continue to move there. Some were retirees, people who no longer work later in life, looking for warmer winters. In Michigan, we call them snowbirds, people who move south to warmer weather for the winter and then come back north. Others were following new jobs in technology, aerospace, healthcare, manufacturing, and other growing industries. The population shift changed not only where Americans lived, but also where businesses invested and where political influence grew. Today, many of America's fastest growing cities are found in the Sun Belt. That also has something to do with state taxation rates. But air conditioning didn't just change cities. It changed everyday life. Schools became more comfortable during the hottest months. Office workers could remain productive even during summer heat waves. Shopping malls became popular gathering places, partly because they offered a cool indoor environment. Cars eventually came with air conditioning as a standard feature. Restaurants became more comfortable. Sporting events, concerts, and other indoor entertainment became much more enjoyable during the summer. Americans even joke that they move from one air-conditioned building to another during July and August. Sometimes the biggest challenge is remembering a light sweater because the air conditioning inside can feel much colder than the weather outside. Air conditioning has also improved public health. During dangerous heat waves, cooled buildings can save lives, especially for older adults, young children, and people with certain medical conditions. Hospitals rely heavily on climate-controlled environments. Computers, laboratories, and many manufacturing industries also depend on carefully controlled temperatures. Today, it's difficult to imagine many modern workplaces operating without air conditioning. Like most inventions, though, air conditioning has brought both benefits and challenges. It uses a great deal of electricity. In many places, increased energy demand during summer heat waves places pressure on electrical grids. There are also environmental concerns related to energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. And around the world, not everyone has equal access to air conditioning, even as summers become hotter. As temperatures continue to rise in many regions, people are increasingly asking how societies can stay cool while also reducing their environmental impact. If you visit the United States during the summer, here are a few expressions you might hear. It's really hot and humid today. The air feels so muggy. We're in the middle of a heat wave. Let's go inside and beat the heat. The AC is blasting. To blast the air conditioning means it's running very strongly, sometimes so strongly that people actually feel cold indoors. One thing that surprises many international visitors is just how cool many American buildings are. In the middle of summer, you might walk from a hot sidewalk into a restaurant, museum, or supermarket and immediately think, wow, it's freezing in here. Now, air conditioning isn't used in quite the same way everywhere. In much of the United Kingdom, homes have traditionally been built to keep heat in during the winter rather than cool air in during the summer. As a result, home air conditioning has never been especially common. In Canada, air conditioning is useful during the summer but unnecessary for much of the year. In Australia, especially in hotter regions, it's an important part of everyday life. And in places like Singapore, where heat and humidity are constant, many people consider it almost essential. Across Europe, the conversation is changing as well. Recent summers have brought record-breaking heat waves to countries such as France, Spain, Italy, and Germany. Many buildings were never designed for prolonged extreme heat, and discussions about whether homes, schools, and public buildings should have more air conditioning have become increasingly common. The question is no longer simply about comfort. For many communities, it's becoming a question of health, safety, and how to adapt to a changing climate. Air conditioning is one of those inventions we rarely think about. We flip a switch, we hear a familiar hum, and cool air begins to flow. But behind that simple moment is a remarkable story. Air conditioning helped reshape where Americans live, transformed cities, changed workplaces, influenced entertainment, and made modern life in much of the country possible. It's a reminder that sometimes the inventions that quietly change our daily lives end up changing history too. Now I'm curious, how common is air conditioning where you live? Is it considered a luxury, a convenience, or an everyday necessity? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for listening to the Sharing English podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share the podcast with a friend who's also learning English. You can find out more about me and the podcast at our website, www.sharing-english.com. New episodes of the Sharing English podcast are available weekly wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, let me know, what topics are you interested in hearing more about? Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep sharing English.